Good afternoon, everyone. Can we bring the lights down a little bit? And you guys see me okay? I can barely see you. I'm getting blinded. My name is Benjamin. This is my beautiful, gorgeous, spiritual wife, Melina. And, generally speaking, we don't love doing like classes right after lunch because everybody has the itis, right? But I feel like you guys are different. That's a great question. You tell me. How are you guys different? Maybe not then. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like you guys are awesome and have a lot of energy. So I'm expecting lots of energy here. No? Okay. There's not much. You guys got to help me out here. Yeah, there we go. There's the energy. Sweet. It's the homie right there. Let's go, God, in a word of prayer. Let's bow our heads. Holy Father, we thank you for an opportunity to just be, honestly, God, meet with our brothers and sisters in here and be a family. Lord, as we think about talking about how do you build a family worth joining, God, we know that it begins with you. It begins with a leveled ground, common ground where we unite around you, God, that you are the only thing that brings us together. I praise you for that because I would have never met my wife if it wasn't for you. I would never met some of the guys and girls I know in this room if it wasn't for you. And God, we just praise you for that. Lord, in this time, I pray that we can have soft hearts that hear your word and let your word change us. And God, any bitterness that we have, any discouragement that we have, God, we pray that you can soften those things. Lord, that our hearts can be melted before you and warmed before you, God, as we even talk about revival and reviving our family in the campus ministry. God, we pray that you be with us and guide us. We pray all these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. My name is Benjamin. Again, this is Melina, and we lead a small church in the New River Valley in Virginia. Does anybody know where that is? Show of hands. Really? Okay, this is awesome. Wow. So Blacksburg, Virginia. If you've ever heard of Virginia Tech or Radford University, we oversee those campus ministries, and we love it there. And basically, the area of the New River Valley is 3 college towns that all border each other in southwestern Virginia. And it's basically the middle of nowhere in the mountains. And so what's special about that is we have a tiny church that is a family. Like, that is what we are known for. That is what we experience, and we love it. There's a slower pace of life, and we just walk with one another all the time. It's awesome. And so this is a picture of, let's see if this works. There we go. This is a picture of me and Melina, and we were at a family reunion, family in this photo. And Melina wanted to make sure that you didn't think she was someone else in that picture, so she wore the exact same shirt.
I didn't realize that until today.
But she did. And so we really think that family is the actual, we think that building ministries, campus ministries, or any ministries, family is the most important thing. And so we felt really excited about this topic and getting asked to speak on this topic. Because what we believe is that you can go through great lengths to evangelize your campus. But we think that any great endeavor in evangelization is all for naught if you don't have a deep, rooted, rich family in Jesus that people get to join and be part of. And why we're so passionate about this is because we've seen really high turnover rates in campus ministries over the years, and it's broken our hearts. And I would attribute a lot of that to people not being part of a family when they're at church. And so we really think that who we are must precede what we do for God. So who we are with God and with one another must precede what we do for God. And so who we are, we'd say we are a community of sons and daughters of the Most High God, adopted into his family and no longer slaves to the sinful patterns of this world. That's who we are, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. And it's a great sentiment, but in practice, that's not always our experience. We don't always experience brotherhood and sisterhood in our ministries. And if you're anything like me, when you're in a campus ministry and you come in and you expect all these guys and girls to be your best friends, and for them to have the same standards of following Jesus that you have, and the same convictions, or maybe you feel like they need to have the same political views, or they need to be the same Enneagram type. I actually don't know anything about Enneagram, so I don't know if you want to be the same type or if you want to be a different type. Does anybody know? No? It depends. Okay. So whatever that is. But we come into campus ministry, and then it's not all fun and games. It's not all easy. Maybe we don't connect with people like we hope we would. Or maybe people just don't want to show up like we hoped they would. And so practicing family can be much harder than just talking about it. And so we want to begin with this idea, the death of the wish stream. The death of the wish stream. And the wish stream is coming into the ministry and thinking, we are all doing the same thing, right? We all have the same standard. We're all just as committed to following Jesus. We're a family now, so we're going to be best friends. This was my wish stream. For church to be easy, for it to feel easy. And I have a story to illustrate this. A couple years ago, we were going on our first baby moon. Do you guys know what a baby moon is? A baby moon is basically a vacation when you're pregnant. It's like a honeymoon, but for babies. No, dang, this is a wrong crowd for that. It's like your last vacation before the new baby comes. That's a baby moon. So we go on a baby moon. We're both Canadians. So we go to Banff, Alberta. It's the Canadian Rockies. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we go there. Melina's very pregnant at the time. And so she didn't want to do a 10-mile hike in the Rockies. Ridiculous, right? That's where I just assumed we'd be exactly on the same page with what we wanted to do on vacation. No, I learned that lesson really quick, that's not the case. But I'm going on this long 10-mile hike. She stays back. And I go on this hike. You're not supposed to hike alone in the Rockies because it is grizzly territory. And so I'm on this long hike and kind of just scared the whole time. I'm by myself. There's nobody in the mountains. And I'm on this long hike. I get to the top. And when you hike by yourself and you want to take a photo to prove that you were there, what do you have to do? Selfie. That's what I should have done. Yes. The timer, right? The self-timer. Yeah. And so I get to the top. You know, how beautiful is this? Isn't that beautiful? It's what? Thank you. So it's beautiful, right? And so this is me trying to set up the timer, right? So I put my phone against a rock. I click go, and then I look at it, and I see it flash. I'm like, dang, I just missed the picture. So right after this picture was taken, I put that backpack down. Yes, exactly, right? No. I put my backpack down, I go back, hit the button again, and then I hear some rocks sliding. And I turn, and my backpack's falling over the edge of the cliff. And it's like one of those things where you're like, should I have jumped and lunged for it? Probably not, right? And so I get on like my belly, I'm like leaning over the side of the cliff, and I'm like looking down. And it's like, it's you can barely see it. It's like in the distance. But it has this brand new Patagonia my wife had got me for my anniversary. It has my AirPods in it. It has my water. And it's a long hike back. And so I'm like, yo, I have to go down and get it. Like, that's my only option. So I start climbing down. I'm just terrified, hating the world. And this was my wish dream, right? My dream was I go on this awesome hike, have a blast, and come back no problem. But I get up there, and it's like everything I was hoping, this easy time, it's all not happening. So I climb down, I get the bag. My water ball was smashed, so I had no water. And I'm just sad, just absolutely sad. I climb back up, thinking I'm going to die the whole time. It starts thunderstorming while I'm climbing up. And so I get to the top, it's just raining. And so I'm just trying to get down the mountain as soon as I can. I get down, and I just, greet Melina at the car, and she's like, you're not happy, are you? I'm like, no, I'm so sad. Can you give me some food and water, please? But that was me being awakened to my wish dream being crushed. And I think when we come into, whether it's campus ministry, what? Oh, shoot. This is a big part of the story, guys. This is the death of the wish dream.
No bag.
No bag. And then you're just dead inside. Like, you pull up, you're still there, right? But you're just dead inside, hating life. That was me in that moment. And the death of the wish dream. And I really think that we can come into campus ministry and have great expectations, great dreams, great hopes, and great faith about what this group is going to be like. But in actuality, it can be really hard. That your dreams of community can sometimes be crushed. And when I was a campus student, I ended up going to the University of Virginia. We had a small campus ministry, and I thought, oh, if it's really small, then we'll be best friends. But the two other guys in the ministry we were all exact opposites of one another and not similar in any way. And so I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is so hard. And I was like, do I need a transfer? Am I going to stay faithful? And all these, my wish dreams just being crushed. And there's a theologian who passed away a number of years ago named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And he writes a book called Life Together. I highly recommend it to all of you, and it's really influenced the way we do ministry. But in Life Together, he writes about this idea of a wish dream, about people bringing expectations onto the family of Christ. And he says about the death of the wish dream, that dismisses once and for all every clamorous desire for something more. One who wants more than what Christ has established does not want Christian brotherhood. He is looking for some extraordinary social experience which he has not found elsewhere. He is bringing muddled and impure desires into the Christian brotherhood. And I think Jesus talks about the same thing in Matthew 10, verse 37. It reads, anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. The idea of losing your life, it's losing that wish dream. Losing those expectations that you put on following Jesus and being able to take kind of all your other sinful desires with you. All of your other expectations. And when we bring expectations to the community about what they're going to do for us, the community becomes less about others and even more less about Christ. It becomes about ourselves. But Christian community can only be about Christ. Because Christ is the only common ground that can actually unite us. It's the only foundation that does not shake. And so building a family worth joining is really about centering on this one thing, that being Jesus. As a small church leader and a campus minister, this is really hard for me because I crave comfortability in the church. And I don't mean like I want my job to be easy. What I mean is I want to feel like my church is growing. I want to feel like we're close. I want to feel like everyone has their niche and fits in, that events are lively, that discipleship is vibrant and life-giving. But those things aren't always the case all of the time. I have a friend in our church right now he's in our young professionals ministry, and he's struggling in his faith. He's struggling with the idea of being part of a family of believers because he's having a hard time. And this summer, that nearly broke me. It was so discouraging to me. And it felt like, man, one of these guys that I really care about, I really rely on, is not doing well in his soul and is having a hard time relating to others. What do I do about this? And in moments like that, I can feel like what someone else is going through is a reflection on me. Like there's an issue with me. So if a brother or sister doesn't come to church, it's because they don't care about being around me. That if someone else isn't doing well, it's because I'm not doing enough. And you see, I have a tendency to make the Christian community, the family of believers, about myself rather than about Christ. And all of this stems from a wish dream, and that wish dream must die.
I find that the wish dream is just that. It's a nice dream about what we think family should look like. There's no hardship, there's no manipulation, no hard conversations, and certainly no pain, because dreams don't have pain. I remember when I first moved to our current church, many people didn't welcome me, invite me over for dinner, make me feel protected. I just grew bitter and angry. It would become commonplace for me to come home in tears every day. And honestly, in those conversations, I wasn't being treated fairly or in love. It took months of anger and bitterness, and honestly trying my best to change things until I actually let go. I've never slapped a girl or gotten into a fight, but my prayers often included me praying to God and telling him, I just want to slap her. I just want to fight that girl.
Facts.
Even though I wasn't treated right, instead of wallowing in that pain, I had to let go of my expectations of these people and lean into the discomfort that comes from strengthening the family. Leaning into that discomfort was powerful for me because I had more difficult conversations with God and with others than I ever had before. I needed to let that dream die. Before I was able to see God bring new life into these relationships, and God did bring new life into those relationships, with many more tears and prayers, I had to allow God to transform me. I wasn't focused on transforming that anymore. God had to transform me, and new life did come. And it's crazy as I was writing this, like all those women who I really wanted to fight, and I was hopeless that we would ever be close, they actually have become incredible friends and confidants.
And that tends to be the case. That was my experience in campus ministry too. The guys who I felt most discouraged by, we were in each other's weddings. Like we were super close to this day. And I find that the wish dream that needs to die is frequently a desire to not have to persevere. And I ask you, what is your wish dream for your family and the campus ministry? Maybe it's feeling like nobody cares about you or values your work. Maybe it's feeling like others just don't get on board with what you're trying to build. Maybe it's that you feel like you're too busy to be engaged with others, or you feel like everybody else is too busy to be engaged with you and the family you're trying to build. Whatever it is, what are these wish dreams that you have? They have to die. And I think Jesus' words to us in Matthew 24:13 are potent for this very purpose. In Matthew 24:13, he says, "The one who endures to the end will be saved." And most Bible scholars kind of look at that passage and they think Jesus is predicting the great schism that's going to happen between Jewish and Gentile Christians. That in 70 AD, when the temple is getting destroyed by the Romans, and the Jewish and Gentile Christians have this big break, and there's a big cutoff of the Christians from the synagogues. Most Bible scholars think that's what Jesus was talking about. He says, the one who perseveres to the end will be saved. But the word be saved there that Jesus uses, when he says be saved, he's not thinking the one who perseveres to the end is going to get to go to heaven when they die instead of going to hell. That's not what he means by be saved. What he's talking about is the one who perseveres to the end is going to be made whole. They're going to experience peace. They're going to be healed. And if we think about salvation in our campus ministries, obviously there's people who need to come to Jesus. But in our campus ministries, if we think about salvation, we need our people, we need ourselves to be healed, to be made whole, to be made well by Jesus. And we must persevere or endure to the end through whatever the crushing of our wish dreams might be. Jesus longs for us to experience peace and wholeness in our spiritual family. I actually think that the campus ministry, our spiritual family, is the battleground for that, for learning how to experience wholeness in Jesus. And so what is Jesus' view of a family worth joining? He tells us in Matthew 12:46-50. That while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside wanting to speak to him. Somebody told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." He replied to him, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" And then pointing to all of you, he says, "Here are my mother and my brothers and my sisters. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." What Jesus is telling us is that the thing that makes you a family is the way that you walk with God. And many of us Westerners don't really understand this idea. This is an idea of kinship. In Jesus' day, kinship, that being family, was everything. And it's kind of one of the reasons why people start trying to follow Jesus and they say, "Hey, let me go back and say goodbye to my family." Or they say, "Hey, let me go and bury my father first, and then I want to follow you." Well, what that probably means is, let me stay with my family until my father passes, and then we finish mourning him as a family, and then let me follow you. Family was everything in Jesus' day. It was all you had. It was the most important thing for you was to honor your father and mother. Not just, based on the 10 Commandments, but because that was the culture that you lived in. Family was everything. And most of us, if we grew up in the West, don't really understand that. We think family sets us up so that we can go and achieve our dreams on our own somewhere else, right? As long as my parents did a great job, if they can send me to that university. Or if I can then go and have that job, or if I can live in that city, or have those experiences. We think family is about serving ourselves. It's not. And so Jesus' words here mean a lot. He says, these are your mother, your brothers, your sisters. He said, these people are everything. Your greatest duty is to them. It's not about you. But the thing that makes them your brothers and sisters is that they are centered on Jesus. Because Jesus is their everything, and he's your everything. This idea of kinship is why in the book of Acts, most of the conversions we see are mass conversions. You don't see one person become a Christian, you see their entire family become Christians. And everybody they know become Christians. If dad does it, we all do it. This is seeing the world through a communal lens rather than an individualist lens. And we have to start grappling with that in our communities. When we make decisions in our campus ministry, we have to think about, how is this going to affect everyone else? What I want to do. How will what I want to do affect everyone else? And I ask you, what if your life isn't about you? But also, what if it isn't just about other people either? What if it's about God? When I ask you, what if your life isn't about you? Does something inside of you kick against the goads a little bit? Does that make you a little uncomfortable? Like, what if my time in college isn't about pursuing my dreams? Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's because of the lens that we have in the West. How do you feel about being a brother or sister or son or daughter to other followers of Jesus? Meaning that you're indebted to them, that you're forced to honor them and be committed to them. How does that make you feel? And I'm not talking about saying, I love you, bro, or calling them your brothers and sisters. I'm talking about committing your life to people in a radical, self-denying fashion. When we think about this, I think about Paul's words that you were bought at a price, right? You are not your own. And that price was the blood of God. It's the blood of Jesus. We are so valuable to God. But I don't think we feel that way about one another all the time. And so following Jesus is like marrying into family where you have that crazy aunt or that crazy uncle or that really goofy cousin. But you're committed to them. You can't do anything about it. That's your family, right? Melina married into my family. Her family's really chill. They're like all the same person. She married into my family. We are nuts. Lots of broken marriages, lots of infidelity, lots of addiction. Like, we have a lot of issues. And actually, pretty early on when we started dating, she got to see crazy stuff in my family firsthand immediately. And then she still married me. And that's amazing. And so as we think about family, you're committed to one another, despite who they are and where they're at. And when I think about the family of Christ, I think about two things. Number one, the family of Christ is the refining fire for being formed into Christ's likeness. And number two, a shelter of the Father's love. A refining fire for being formed into Christ's likeness. Robert Mulholland is kind of an expert in spiritual formation. And he says, we can no more be conformed to the image of Christ outside of corporate spirituality than a coal can continue to burn outside of the fire. And we have Mitchell, he's an Eagle Scout here in the front row. And you ever taken a log out of a fire that's was burning, right? How long does it stay burning? When you take it out of the fire? It quenches immediately, right? Thank you. You almost ruined my whole point. I thought he was the expert on fires, Now he is. But just like an earthly family, I grew up, fighting with my parents all the time. I grew up fighting with my little brother all the time. And in a family, you learn how to have conflict. You learn how to fight. But you also learn how to have healthy conflict. At least you should. We learn how to love and be loved unconditionally. I love my brother. We are exact opposite. But he was my best man. I was his best man in our weddings. I love him to death. He'll always be one of my best friends, even when we're not getting along as adults. Why? Because you learn those skills in family. The family of Christ, I believe, is a refining furnace that God uses to form us into people of Christ's character. It's a spiritual family where our selfishness gets burned away. Where our selfishness... Read about Jesus' disciples arguing amongst themselves. Who's the greatest, right? In the family, you have those fights, and then Jesus has to come in and say, you guys are all idiots. Be like a child. It's also in the family that you learn to serve. It's in the family that you learn to let Jesus wash your feet, to let someone else serve you. Oh, but then go and do likewise. It's in the family that you learn these skills. It's also why Jesus says in John 13:35, most of us know this one, if not, memorize it. All people will know you are my disciples by what? Your love for one another. Where do you learn to love one another? In the family. You know, this is a furnace that's the training ground for life in the kingdom of heaven. You know, some of us think like, you know, when I get to heaven, then I'm going to be, you know, I'm not going to be selfish anymore. I'm not going to be impure anymore. Really? You think just in heaven all that stuff's going to disappear? No, you're becoming the person now that you will be for eternity. It's in the family here that you learn how to be like Jesus. Don't wait. And this is why I really think the family is the soil where we learn to die so we can become greater like Jesus, right? Where we can be multiplied. And this is why the Benedictine nun once said, the family is not just a routine relationship, it is our sanctification. In other words, it is where we are made holy. The second thing about the family is that it is a shelter of the Father's love. And the family of God on earth is what I would describe as a tangible image of the shadow of God's wings. The psalmist in Psalm 91:4 says, he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. And so in the same psalm we read that God is my refuge, God is my fortress. One of the greatest ways we experience this tangibly, or at least one of the greatest ways I've experienced this tangibly, is in my brothers and sisters. In my brothers and sisters in the faith. Where I've experienced God's wings when I felt like I had nothing to give. Where I felt like I could do nothing, being wrapped up by my brothers and sisters. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. We bind ourselves to each other in times of strength, so that in moments of weakness, we do not become unbound. We've experienced this firsthand.
Our daughter was born silently on August 10th, 2021, without any known cause or explanation. My daughter died inside me the day after her due date. I delivered her via C-section after 30 hours of labor. Yes. While I was in labor, we had to make the incredibly difficult decision of what we would do with her body. Did we want to do a funeral? Where would we bury her? How do we even get a headstone? Eventually, we decided that we wanted to involve as many people as we could. I wanted people to turn to Jesus. I wanted people to lean into the discomfort of a perfect child dying and what that means for us as followers of Jesus. I didn't know why this happened, and I wasn't even able to speak to God during this time, but I knew that I wanted to bring people near him as a safe place. We decided to have a memorial service outside on our family property under a huge tent. We invited everyone, even the nurses that were with us in the hospital. During the service, we had our parents speak, and we spoke also. I wanted my daughter's life to impact people. We had worship and sang songs. We took communion. Everyone had a full glass of wine, and we had good communion bread. Afterwards, we ate. We wanted everyone to have full bellies and sit in the tension of living in the world with all its heartbreak and the hope we have of the resurrection. After everyone had eaten and fellowshipped, my husband and our fathers carried Sophia's resting bed over to the resting place that my husband dug himself. We lowered her in, and then we asked everyone who was there to grab a shovel and shovel some dirt. And as a congregation, we buried my little girl. I have heard a few times now from friends that they have never cried so much over anything in their lives than over hearing about my daughter's passing. I've received many messages where people have told me that Sophia's life has completely impacted their lives forever. Those were the words that meant the most to us. The words that hurt the most were those who held on to that wish dream. You guys are young, you have time to have more children. God has a plan. Everything happens for a reason. These words hurt more than help. I want to share this because how I thought about family wasn't this, partially because I never could have imagined that this would happen to us, but also because I didn't know I would have to rely on others so much. And I didn't know how many people would share this burden with me. We relied on others just to eat food in those early days. I don't even mean I needed help cooking. I mean, if I didn't have a fully prepared plate placed directly in front of me and someone telling me to eat, I would not have eaten. I never thought I would need people like this. Although I felt like I couldn't speak to God, there was one scripture that always came to mind, and it was written on my heart during this time. In Psalm 23, it says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." I felt the shelter of the Father's love through our family in the valley of the shadow of death. Experiencing the goodness of God's family is an open invitation, but it requires us to participate.
Thank you. It's in those times of heartbreak that we realize how much we need our brothers and sisters and how they are the shelter of the Father's wings. But it's also in those times where I have to learn how to love and hug and respect those brothers and sisters who say things that are incredibly insensitive, incredibly hurtful, words that I will never forget, that still haunt me. But I still love those brothers and sisters. It's these times are the furnace that forms us into the likeness of Christ. And it's in these times that we must bind, in times of strength, we must bind ourselves to one another. So in times of pain and weakness and turmoil and strife, we do not become unbound. We want to go through some practices and just kind of what we do in our church family. And then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. The first one is we just try to do life together. And 1 Thessalonians 2:7-8 reads, "Instead, we were like infants among you. Just as a nursing mother cares for her children, so we cared for you. Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well." And in life together, there's both give and take, right? There's both needing to give and also needing to receive. And we see that infants need mothers, but then also a nursing mother cares for infants. But doing life together means we celebrate together and we mourn together and we're vulnerable together in all of the in-between, sharing all of the parts of our lives with others. And in so doing, they might share their life with you too. But I think this looks like when you're going through hardship, any type of hardship, involve your brothers and sisters. When you're going through excitement, celebrate. This means every time someone gets a new job, go out to eat and celebrate that. Every birthday, celebrate that. Sing happy birthday at every midweek, and when you have a bigger group, it's like every week it's somebody's birthday, right? Don't stop celebrating that stuff. Number two, the second practice, is just radical hospitality. And the best biblical examples of this is in Genesis 18, where we see Abraham and Sarah go through great lengths and great sacrifice to show radical hospitality to these three strange visitors. And in their midst, they end up encountering the Lord, Yahweh, right? And we see in Genesis 18, it's immediately juxtaposed with Genesis 19, where we see what? Sodom and Gomorrah, the absolute opposite of radical hospitality. And so hospitality, we think, is one of the most important things for evangelism, but also for building family. And then you see this again in Luke chapter 10, verses 1-12, where we actually see almost a reenactment of Genesis 18 and 19, where Jesus sends his disciples to go give and receive hospitality. He says, go in vulnerability. Take nothing with you. Carry no bag, no extra pair of sandals, no staff for the road, no money. You're going to go and be vulnerable and just need from others. That was us in times of suffering and grief. We needed people to feed us, like literally feed us. So go and be in need. Be okay being vulnerable with one another, like the absolute most vulnerable you can be. But then also be the one that heals their diseases too, like Jesus' disciples do in all the towns and villages where Jesus was sending them before him. And we think about these, and I think about how, we've tried to practice this. We've been married for over 4 years, and we've lived alone in our home for a little over 1 year. In other words, we've constantly had people living with us. Guys, girls, both at the same time for weird reasons. But we've always had people in our house. Every week we have people over for meals. We try to have meetings, leaders meetings, everything in our home. Like the amount of life that's happened in our living room of the house we just moved out of, which is really sad. The amount of life that happened in that room is incredible. We had people start dating in our backyard, lots of life there. But do life together, radical hospitality. Melina's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Just the idea of hospitality requires you to be inconvenienced. It's a practice that requires time, intentionality, sacrifice. And I don't think hospitality requires a home, although a home is ideal. I think many people love the idea of being hospitable. What I have found, though, is that developing a conviction of hospitality like Jesus means that you practice it when you're not ready for it, when you didn't necessarily plan for it, and especially when you're tired. And I should mention that it is important to have boundaries, by the way, which we encourage, and we hope that people can practice healthy rhythms and Sabbaths, etc. But having those healthy boundaries means that you can be flexible in the area of hospitality. You can be flexible with your resources, with your time, and with your heart. And creating a safe haven for others is absolutely game-changing in creating family. The third practice we have is the necessity of stability. Being present in your own home ministries is so important. I'm all for traveling if possible and making visits to other ministries, getting to know that special brother or sister, but plan it with your ministry leadership team, not because they have a hold on you, but because you're part of a team when you're involved in a ministry. And I think this matters even if there are important people that you need to connect with outside of your ministry. Like if you need to go see your family, if you need to go see your boyfriend or girlfriend, just work with your leadership team because they want to work with you. They don't want to oppress you in your travel plans. And dreaming for your church family is also really important. Don't get caught up in the fast-paced life of moving from city to city. The grass is always going to be greener on the other side in that other campus ministry. But what is God using in your current situation to form you into Christ-likeness? How will it affect the family when you move away? Do you consider that when you're just leaving to travel?
Yeah, when we think about the necessity of stability, we think about making a covenant within your community. And what I mean by that is promising yourself to your brothers and sisters that I'm going to be with them. I'm going to be with them in this place and be present here. Monks, when monks will join an order and live at an abbey and become a Benedictine monk or a Jesuit, etc., they make a vow of stability to that monastery, meaning they're going to just be there indefinitely, forever. They're committing themselves to those people in that space until God makes it clear that they need to go elsewhere. But in things like that, I think that's what we ought to do with one another. And say, I am being with these people. And it makes us resilient, but also forces us to be vulnerable. When you commit yourself to people doing everything in life together, well, they see all of your junk. And you see all of their junk. And then you learn how to love one another despite all of that. Our next practice is, this one's going to get might be a little funky for you, but a centered church rather than a bounded church. A centered church, on the right side, a centered church is when you see people as on a spiritual journey of becoming like Jesus and on their way towards the center being Christ. And so people who are members are those who are directing their lives towards Christ. But that could be people who are really weak and just kind of reorienting themselves back towards Christ, or it could be people who actually haven't decided to get baptized yet. They haven't committed themselves to Jesus yet, but they're on their way and they're trying to get there. When you see people on a journey rather than a bounded church, which is, kind of these are the people who are in and these are the people who are out. And until they meet these boxes in my mind of what it means to be a good Christian, they're out, right? When we have bounds on our family, it ends up really hurting people. But when you have a center church where everybody's being directed towards the center, whether or not they're close towards the center or really far away from the center, it gets really messy. But I think it sees people as humans, and it sees people as your brothers and sisters, even if they're a distant cousin, I'll share a little bit about us. What we've done a little bit is sometimes we'll have leaders meetings that are just open. And we say, hey, this leaders meeting is open to anybody in the congregation. It gets messy because then we have guys and girls who are just recently coming to church, and they say, I want to be there. That's awesome. And they come to our leaders meeting, and we're like, they don't even know any of this stuff. Why are they here? But they want to be part of the group. They want to be part of the family, and they feel like they can be. And so it's messy because then we have to kind of change our plans a little bit, but people feel like they're welcome. Something else we've done, we had a sisters encouragement night a few months back. And so we had the brothers helping with the sisters encouragement night, but then we also had all the guys who are part of our campus ministry who aren't brothers yet, who haven't been baptized yet, is what that really means, who also helped lead the sisters encouragement night. It got messy because one of the homies shows up in a Playboy t-shirt. And I'm like, that's a whole nother conversation, right? I'm like, bro, what are you doing? But then you have a guy like that. What he did was he spoke this poem for the sisters, but he's wearing a Playboy t-shirt while he's doing it. It was kind of wild, right? And so we have messy conversations like that. What it means is everybody's bought in. Everybody feels like they're part of the family, wherever they are in their journey. And Melina, you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's important not having clear separating lines. Instead, involve interested newcomers to feel like they're family already. If it's awkward, let it be awkward. But how people feel loved is the thing that they're going to walk away with. Involve those who are genuinely interested into your D groups. There was a girl in our campus ministry who wasn't technically part of our membership, but her contributions to the church and our campus ministry were incredible. She was an immense encouragement in her D group. She was super deep and read her Bible more than anyone in the campus ministry. And last year it was really amazing. 2 people became disciples from her evangelism. It was 2 people in her program, and it was really, really incredible to see how God was able to use her. And I think if we had made clear defining lines, the impact wouldn't have been the same. And eventually she, became a member, and it was really a celebration because everyone knew and loved her at that point.
Yeah, I think the idea is seeing people on a journey and they're part of your family. I got these images actually from a book called Centered Set Church by Mark D. Baker. If you want to read it, it's amazing. You won't agree with everything he says, but some of it's awesome. The third thing that I don't have up here is a fuzzy church. And a fuzzy church is where you go from being a bounded church with clear lines of who's in and who's out to we're going to drop all lines and everybody's welcome here, but there's no real standards. That's not the goal. The goal is seeing people as on a journey. And wherever they are in that journey, they're welcome there. And you're meeting them where they're at. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to be towards the center and really like Jesus in everything they're doing. It doesn't mean everybody's not going to show up wearing a Playboy t-shirt. But what it does mean is you can meet people where they're at. And we think that's really important. C.S. Lewis said something about this many, many years ago when he said the situation in the actual world is much more complicated than that. The world does not consist of people who are 100% Christian and people who are 100% not Christian. There are people, a great many of them, who are slowly ceasing to be Christians, but who still call themselves by that name. Some of them are clergymen. In other words, some of them are your pastors. But there's other people who are slowly becoming Christians, though they do not yet call themselves so. There are people who do not accept the full Christian doctrine about Christ, who are so strongly attracted by him that they are his in a much deeper sense than they themselves understand. Family does not give up on one another. Family has years-long journey. This girl who helped us baptize 2 people in the last few months, this girl is amazing. But her story is a 4-year story. And I think about people. People are on journeys towards the likeness of Christ. Meet people where they're at. Our fifth practice is just have fun. And so we try to have a lot of fun. What that looks like is we have campus ministry lock-ins every semester. And what that means is you have a house and all the guys and all the girls stay overnight in the same house. And what we do is we separate, genders on different floors. So girls upstairs, guys downstairs, and all the guys sleep on the floor. That's what that means. But what we do, we stay up really late together and just have a blast. We have tons of fun. Some of the other things we do for fun, our midweeks are really interactive. They're all about everybody participating, everybody being engaged. We have church on Sundays, and our Friday night devotionals are just fun events. But we go like camping every semester together, outside of retreats. We just do a ton of fun together because it's in those experiences that you build memories and build relationships. And, I could probably say a lot more about that. But in our cultural moment, I don't think that God is calling the church to be primarily a prophetic voice requesting repentance of all its hearers. Rather, I think God is calling us to be a city on a hill, a heavenly family built on top of an earthy hill that radiates light of love to all those who are sojourning and searching for a respite. What I mean is, I don't think we're just supposed to tell people what they need to do all the time. I think we need to be a light of love to people that draws people in. When people are searching for something some place where they're gonna belong, some place where they're gonna be wrapped up in the Father's wings. Let us be that hill. When people are journeying through a dry and weary land, let us be the oasis that they find. The time is now to cultivate such an atmosphere in our midst that our church family becomes a thin space, where heaven and earth seem to overlap, where the love of God is clearly among us, and God himself seems to walk among us, because we don't know where he's going to show up. And as the Trappist monk Thomas Merton once said, love is our true destiny. We do not find the meaning of life by ourselves alone. We find it with another. So let it be so among us. May we build a family worth joining, one where we find our true destiny and where love reigns in our midst. Amen. Thank you, guys. We have 7 minutes, and so we want to open up for a little bit of Q&A. So we only have a few minutes, but if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, please, we'd love to talk about it now. Yeah, Ben.
Here you go, sir. Thank you guys so much. As you know, I know you guys pretty well, and I've had the opportunity to experience the family that you guys had, and I don't think I can tell you enough how much of a special ministry you guys have had, and not only because my girlfriend is from that ministry. Thank you for that. But also, I think the way that you guys love people has really been informative for me, especially when we did a campus swap there. And so, I had a question because the story you mentioned about the guy who was, did the poetry and, came to that event in that way, I think it made me think about this question as far as, how can we lovingly guide and redirect people who are not committed disciples so that they haven't pledged to hold to the standard that we have, but whose behaviors or thinking or language can impact the culture of your family?
This is a great question. I think the culture that you create in campus ministry is so important. I don't think it's primarily about drawing lines, though, of we all need to learn what's right and wrong, what's sin and what's not sin, right? I don't think that's your number one job as you're creating culture. I read about Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners, right? Or prostitutes, what that really means probably. And you think about him meeting with those people in their home, half of them are probably drunk, right? And Jesus is with them. I'm not saying go to the parties and stuff, but I'm saying I think it's okay for church to be messy at times. When people are being loved into the family, I think it's okay. It's going to be messy. I don't think you avoid that. I don't think you shy away from that. I think you have those conversations as they come up. But what's special is it gets really messy. In our campus ministry, when people come to our campus ministry, they don't know who's a member and who's not right away. The more time they spend, they realize, okay, who's actually doing discipleship and who's clearly not, but is still showing up and trying and on their journey somewhere, right? Because we don't push people away when they're messing up. And like that homie, he's still invited, even if he wore his Playboy t-shirt, right? We still love him. He's not going anywhere. So that's my short answer, but I think it gets messy. And you have to be okay with that. I think Jesus' ministry was messy. And so were the churches. You read about Corinth, half of them were, like, if we abounded church, we go back to the idea, you think half that congregation are not Christians. If it's a bounded church. If it's a church where people are, maybe their direction is pointed away from Christ, but now it's being reoriented, it makes a little bit more sense, I would say. But I could be wrong, too. Any other questions?
Hi, you spoke about the importance of unity and how for a group of people to kind of function together, they need something at the center that unites them all. And I think what you were saying was that what unites us in the church is our journey towards Christ and being like Christ. How do you deal with, or what do you think, or have you ran into issues where people have different definitions of what it means to be like Christ? Because I think that's where we see division in churches. Some people say, oh, to be like Christ, you need to be like this or like that, and then you have the split, and then that's where the unity ends. So how do you kind of deal with people having different ideas about what it means to be like Jesus?
I'll give my first thoughts, and then if you want to add anything, just let me know. I think that's the beauty of diversity in the body of Christ, is you are going to have some people who, and I think it's a gift. It's not something that we have to deal with. I think it's a gift when people see being like Jesus in different ways. It means we're actually putting those together. We're getting a fuller picture of who Jesus was and what he was like and what he calls us to. So I think it's using people's gifts, using people's focuses. Even the way we each read the Bible is going to be different. And so when we read the Bible in community, we get a fuller picture of what the text is actually saying and how it applies to every culture and every person, why the gospel truly is for everybody. So I think seeing those things, those differences as a blessing, not a curse.
Yeah. I want to add, too, those girls that I wanted to fight earlier, even though we're really close, there are still key things that we do not agree on. And we have those conversations, but I think it is a gift. Like, it's super challenging to be uncomfortable and not feel completely on the same page on every single thing. But that is how God is forming us at the same time, both that person and me. Maybe there's something I need to learn as well. So it's not a clear answer, but it's not like a clear approach or experience as well.
And when Christ is the center, every person is trying to be directed back to that one person, right? The source of life. So,
do we need to end? Or?
Hey, Ben. Oh, that was loud.
Oh, okay.
Yo, what's up?
I had a question about, like, the standards. I was wondering, like, how you thought standards can be applied, like, non-aggressively in a way that makes people feel loved. And, like, also as an addendum, like, how did you address that issue of that guy wearing an appropriate T-shirt? Like, how did that situation play out?
He hasn't worn it again. I think I just asked. I mean, it's probably a bigger question than just that, right? I think it's those one-on-one conversations. I think any of the guys, you guys ever like gone and played basketball with like some Christians and then some non-Christians? And then maybe somebody who just became a Christian, they like dropped the F-bomb or something like that. You ever seen that happen? We had that happen at our last campus retreat. And I was like, yo, what'd you just say? Like, bro, we're all Christians here, right? And so I think, honestly, just having, when you do life together, you can have organic conversations and address those things. But you're also still eating a meal with that guy every week, so he doesn't feel like, oh, man, this guy doesn't care about me. He's judging me. I still get with him, even if he doesn't come to church on Sunday. So that's what I would say is when you're doing life together, you can have hard conversations, and you're still spending time together, and you keep it moving. But I think it is messy. Somebody drops the F-bomb on the basketball court. You're like, what? Any other questions?
Do we have to end it?
I'll mine really quick. I think, that's that. You talked about kind of with the wish stream, that's kind of the desire not to persevere. How do you balance not necessarily having a wish dream, but still having dreams and hopes and goals for your time in camp, especially for people who are going into maybe their freshman or sophomore year?
Great question. You have thoughts?
No, not right away.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal question. I wouldn't use the language of dreams when it comes to community. I think hopes, like you definitely have hopes for sure. But I think your hope is spend time, like hope is do these things together. That's what I would say. My hope is to spend, time around a table with someone every week. and build family. That's how you're going to build family. So my hope is to spend time with my brothers and sisters. My hope is to ask them about their lives and have them ask about my life. And I don't know. I mean, obviously you want to have best friends, but you may or may not have them in your ministry. But if you have all those expectations on others, you're going to just get bitter. And so I think that has to melt away. Those have to burn away, or you actually won't build the relationships you hope for. We can talk after. That's my quick answer. It's hard though. Yeah. We have time? No? Oh, we have time still? Okay. Just one more. You still have a question? Yeah. Yeah. So I'll second that. I guess when you think about dreams and visions in the Bible, the dreams and visions are always from God. But they're very clear what God is going to do or what he is doing. They're not human, it's not like I just started dreaming about what I want to see, and then I came up with a goal, and then I'm trying to achieve that goal. That's not a biblical dream or vision, right? When we think about Joseph's dreams, even if they were about people bowing down to him, he had no idea what was going to happen or how to get there. And he got there through many, many, many years of suffering. And so I think when we think about dreams and visions, it's dreams and visions about what God's doing. And God, the word of the Lord is what God is up to. And so maybe the question we can ask, instead of us trying to come up with our own dreams and visions, is what is God already up to in the context where I find myself? That's the question I would ask. And then I would let those become my dreams and visions. I think we can try to come up with dreams and visions ourselves and then think we're admirable about that. I don't think we necessarily are.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that's always driven me is we get to be a part of what God is doing, what his dream already is, what he's putting into action, and we can have expectations of ourselves as well. One of the things I did want to mention, I forgot to, is even if you're super introverted, which I am, I lean heavily, almost 100% introvert. And I think that could be an excuse for people not to create family, or whatever your Enneagram is as well. But we could lean into those things and have expectations of ourselves based on what God has desired for us.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening and being patient.